Okay. Okay, welcome everyone again tonight. Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending your evening here with us at Immigrant Techies Alberta. So we host meetups we host it twice a month, the first and third Tuesday of the month. And today we have, I was gonna ask how you say your last name.
Oh, that's okay. It's complex. It's Pascal Theriault. It's a French Canadian.
Yeah,
name,
I know.
I
was gonna ask you ahead. Sorry about that. So we have Pascal Theriault tonight, and before I invite him, I'm just going to quickly go over just some information about Immigrant Techies Alberta, and then I'm going to invite Ross Plattel to talk a little bit about Civic Tech YYC. So they have some projects ongoing, and it might be helpful for a lot of people on this platform that are looking for projects to practice what they are learning. So Ross is going to share some of that, and then Pascal will take over the show. So sharing my screen here. So Immigrant Techies Alberta is a meetup group, is a casual group. All we do is get together and just discuss ideas, demystify concepts, we're making this place a welcoming space for people who are exploring, who are trying to know more about what's going on in the ecosystem. So we're a tech enthusiast group for immigrants, not exclusively, who are in tech or interested in tech or trying to pivot, trying to start a business, just a mix of all of that. And we represent a bridge into the innovation community, because this was born as a result of a gap that was observed between all the cool stuff that was going on in tech versus what the average Calgary employee knew about. So we wanted to create that bridge so that so everybody can see themselves in this Alberta and the new economy that we are presenting. So it's an exploratory space for those who are interested in tech, opportunities to network and for mentorship. I mean, like today we have Pascal here. He's like a leading voice if you want to understand what goes on behind recruitment in tech, particularly in tech. He's your guy. And I'm sure he's open to having so many more connections than he already has, right? So yeah, we exist to curate emerging tech content, events, resources, and career opportunities. And the goal is to provide community and support for immigrant professionals who are interested in tech and everyone else that's exploring the space. And with that, I'll let Ross take over for a few minutes.
Sounds good. Do you want to give me co-host status just so I can share a couple slides there?
Sure. Okay.
Cool. Thank you. All right. So I'm Ross Plattel, and tonight I'm representing Civic Tech Calgary. Just a little bit of background. Civic Tech is a movement. There's a whole bunch of different civic tech groups across Canada. We look specifically at the use of technology for public good and how the use of technology, data, and design can address issues like challenges that citizens have with governments, pursuing opportunities for citizen engagement and more effective services, especially with this year where we're kind of entering the fall. We're doing a little bit more engagement at different meetup groups to get people involved. Just looking at civic tech as part of the innovation space, we're kind of at the center of citizens, civil society, community challenges, government, public sector, and digital service challenges. Civic Tech's a space where you can come together, work across with people from different industries, and work with the community to build and solve problems. We have a bunch of volunteer projects that we've done over the years. I'll show the website a little bit later in the presentation here, so that you guys can check out afterward. We've had these different volunteer community-led projects. So if you have any ideas and want to work with the team, we'll be able to help facilitate that for you. So Civic Tech was originally launched in June of 2017. We now have over 800 members on our meetup group, and they're traditionally on the second Tuesday of each month. So you can go to the main meetup website there. I'll drop stuff in the chat just after I take down my presentation here. And then there's our website, civictechyyc.ca. And then you can find us on Twitter. That handle actually also works for Instagram and LinkedIn there. And then we've just got some volunteer forms for people who are interested in getting involved. So you can do the general feedback form. And if you feel like you'd be interested in a leadership position after checking out the information on our website, we are trying to expand and make the group a little bit larger as we come out of COVID here. We're probably going to be having a few hackathons and events for people to get a part of. And then for in general, if you just want to sign up for our newsletter, I'll be dropping in, again, the website will just be in the chat there. And if anyone has any quick questions, I guess, before I hand it off to Pascal.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we can. Do you have can you drop your LinkedIn profile or any way you want people to reach out to you if they have questions particularly?
Yeah, I'll drop just the feedback forms in the chat there, and I'll also drop, my LinkedIn profile. I'll put in there as well if people want to connect on there.
Yes, Tariq, we share the recording. Someone was asking in the chat if we share the recording. Okay, so welcome to the floor, Pascal. Pascal is the talent acquisition specialist at Avanti Software. Welcome, Pascal.
Yeah, thank you very much, Winmi and the Immigrant Techies Alberta organization for having me. Really, really excited to be here today. So to talk a little bit about, I guess, the different styles in communication between the Canadian business world and other parts of the world, I guess, internationally, and kind of how that plays out, I guess, in the job search and interviewing and networking processes as well. So just bear with me for a quick second here, and I will share my screen. All right, can everyone see the PowerPoint slideshow?
Looks good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Ross. Awesome. So yeah,
nice picture.
Thank you. Yeah, we always get complimented for those.
Yeah.
Everyone at Avanti. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about Avanti as well, just really quickly. But everyone at the company that I work for, Avanti Software, we always get one of these little cartoon avatars made up for all of our new hires when they start with us. So it's a cool little perk. Obviously, just a small thing, but kind of is cool, and are able to use it on LinkedIn or other social platforms or PowerPoints like this and that kind of thing. So it's just a fun thing to have. And if you've seen my LinkedIn, I think I have one with a mask for COVID on there as well. So anyways, to kind of just quickly talk about the agenda, I'll quickly introduce you to myself, talk a little bit about Avanti, then we'll get into the majority of the discussion today, which is the communication styles gap discussion. I also want to kind of preface this by saying, of course, I'm a born Canadian as well, so I'm sharing my perspective as a Canadian recruiter. I really want to get other people's perspectives on this call shared tonight as well, and I really want to make some of that discussion a little bit more interactive, because you are the ones that are actually more likely to be going through some of these challenges, of course, on the candidate side as newcomers to Canada. So I really want to just kind of share my perspective and also hear your perspectives, and then we can talk about where some of those gaps might be, and then towards the end of the conversation, we'll talk about a few takeaways from this discussion or subject matter, I guess, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for some question and answers at the end as well. So just to quickly introduce myself for those of you that might not know me yet, my name is Pascal Theriault. I'm the talent acquisition specialist for Avanti Software. Really, I've worked in the tech industry now for a little over a year, I guess coming up on a year and a half since I've been with Avanti. Prior to that, I had about three and a half years of recruitment experience across a few other industries as well. I worked in the agriculture and oil and gas industries, some of your more traditional Albertan businesses, if you will. I worked in a systems integration business, which is more related to engineering and drafting of complex building systems, and I was a recruiter in that industry, which was interesting. And I also worked in the online grocery delivery business briefly as well, and that was really that role, and in the systems integration business, those were sort of my entry points, or areas where I gained some of the experiences that allowed me to truly make entry into the tech industry about a year and a half ago. So professionally, I'm really passionate about providing an excellent candidate-centric kind of talent experience throughout the recruitment process. So that means just really being responsive and available, providing really good feedback, and just always keeping candidates kind of in the loop and in what's going on, and keeping things moving forward wherever possible as well. Outside of work, I really love keeping up on tech trends as well. Following the technology and software industries have really been a passion of mine for many years, even back to when I was in university, and that's really kind of followed through, of course, in my career to this day, and just always keeping up on the latest and greatest trends and products and that kind of thing. And personally, I'm a big sports fan. Hockey is my number one, I would say, as someone who's born and raised in Alberta. Although I live in Calgary, I'm actually an Edmonton Oilers fan at heart. And I also just love, of course, supporting the local restaurants and craft breweries and music venues and that kind of thing when we're able to. But of course, that hasn't been a possibility for the last year or plus. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to that soon. Just really covering a high-level overview of Avanti as well, just because I am here as a representative of Avanti as well. So really, we're just a passionate bunch of people on a mission to help Canadian companies build better workplaces. So I'll talk a little bit on the next slide about what it is that we do in terms of our product, but really, we are a people-centric business. We are essentially in the business of HR and people management software. So even before we look at the product, and I think it's really important in any organization, but especially for us at Avanti, to really start with the people, and I think the people really make or break any business. And that's of course why we love getting back in these kinds of settings, because I think it's all about building good trust and good relationships with all sorts of people and candidates, and hopefully that reflects positively back on myself and back on Avanti in the long run as well. But we're about 95 people right now, a little under 100, and growing. So we're really excited to be crossing the 100 mark a little bit later this year, hopefully. And we are headquartered here in Calgary, Alberta. We have a nice corporate office downtown that has been closed for the last year, but again, we're hopeful that we'll be able to get back into that in the not so distant future. And we also, I should say, although we're based in Calgary here and have our head office here, we are a distributed or remote first organization, and that is our philosophy long term now, even post COVID. So we do already have people based outside of Calgary, as you can see there, in a variety of different cities and provinces across Canada already. And I would say that we're getting to be closer and closer to a 50-50 split in terms of people in and around Calgary and working remotely or working from home outside of Calgary as well. So what it is that we do, we provide an innovative suite of cloud-based human resources and payroll solutions to medium-sized organizations across Canada. So within that kind of all-in-one suite or product solution that we offer, there are 4 modules that make that up. The first is payroll. That's really our core product, and what Avanti was initially founded as back in the day was as a payroll software, helping our clients to administer and run payroll for their workforce, and of course make sure their employees are paid on time, the right amounts, and in compliance with any tax and payroll legislation and everything like that. The second module that we offer is our time and attendance, also known as workforce management module. So that's really anything time related. So things like shift scheduling, timesheet approvals, vacation requests, sick days, those kinds of things. Thirdly is the people management or HR module. So that's really your standard human resource information system, helping the organization and employees to track, maintain, update, report on employee data, personal information, banking info. There's a performance management piece built into that module as well, for goal tracking and performance reviews with leaders and those sorts of things. And then fourth and finally is the recruitment and onboarding module. And that is really on the hiring side of things. So that comes with the career site integration, the backend applicant tracking system, and then a nice self-service digital onboarding workflow. So really at the simplest, highest level, we like to say we're in the business of building a better workplace for our Canadian clients, like I alluded to on the last slide. And we do that through facilitating all of these different HR and payroll touch points throughout the duration of the employee life cycle. But anyways, let's get into the meat of tonight's discussion. So really, I wanted to just go through a series of kind of really high level questions, I would say here for the next little bit. We're doing pretty good on time, which is great. So I would love to make this a little bit more interactive as a discussion as well. I do have like the PowerPoint speaker notes pulled up right now in front of me. So if there's anyone that would like to raise their hand or would like to talk or anything as I'm kind of going through this or asking questions, please just jump in and let me know. That would be awesome if you could kind of moderate if anyone would like to chime in or share their story or anything like that. Does that work with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So yeah, anyways, again, the core of this evening's discussion for the rest of it is really talking about the Canadian international communication styles gap and kind of how that sort of plays out in the job search and recruitment process. So really, I wanted to start out the discussion by asking this question: what is the Canadian way? So from my perspective, it's interesting because as a born Canadian, I don't really think that Canada has like a super unique way of communicating or anything like that. But of course, when we have these discussions and we talk to people from other parts of the world and different cultures, and you really realize you do or the country does. But I think what's important to remember when we're talking about kind of this Canadian way, and I put Canadian in sort of quotations there just because I think the Canadian way can sort of vary depending on who you talk to or which part of the country you're in and those kinds of things as well. So Canada is a very large and broad country, and there's sort of different subcultures within different provinces and cities and that kind of thing as well. So I just want us all to kind of keep that in mind, that what we're talking about today and what the perspective that I'll share is really that it's my perspective and kind of my lived experience. But I do want us to kind of keep an open mind with some of the things that we're talking about here, and again realize that like my word is not gospel by any means. It's not necessarily truth. I'm here to kind of share my opinion and my perspective and facilitate this discussion. But I think this is like a really, really broad and complex and serious topic. So I do think it's important just to call out that there's other people that have really great things to say about these kinds of things as well. And you may or may not agree with everything that I say as well today. And that's hopefully okay. And I just want us to, again, to have sort of that open, safe space where we can have this discussion. But anyways, the thing to, I think about with Canadian, the Canadian culture, the Canadian way as well, is that Canada is really an amalgamation of cultures from all around the world, from over the last several hundred years, if you think about it, and even more so, I would say, over the last maybe 30, 40, 50 years, like has been when we've seen a much higher kind of spurt in terms of our population growth and like immigration into Canada and that kind of thing. So I think Canada has a very unique culture in that sense, that there's so many different types of people and backgrounds and languages and religions and cultures and everything that are all kind of blended into one melting pot. So with what I sort of view as the Canadian way, if you will, I think it's really at its core is really just about kind of building trust and building relationships over time by just conversating simply and asking questions back and forth and learning about one another kind of over the course of time. I think it's not maybe always as direct as some other cultures are or as kind of I guess not necessarily salesy, but like a little bit more reserved and a little bit less kind of direct or like out there kind of thing. So it's really more about building that relationship and building that trust over time, I think. So what I've seen doesn't typically work as well in terms of Canadian communication style, or might go against what a lot of people or born Canadians might view as Canadian communication style, I think, is being too direct or too like upfront and aggressive, or too pushy or too salesy. And I really realize that other cultures are kind of naturally ingrained or I guess raised to be a little bit more direct, or be a little bit more to the point, or be like sugarcoat things less, for example, in terms of when you're giving someone feedback, or when you're telling them information that you feel is important to get across. So I think those are kind of the considerations to keep in mind. Again, what I haven't seen work as well as, I would say, as well, like maybe asking or kind of coming off expecting things in a conversation in this sort of culture of building trust and relationships over time. Sometimes if you ask for things, like if I've seen people ask for jobs like in their first message when they're reaching out to communicate or network with someone, I've seen people kind of just like jumping straight into telling their full kind of life and career story, which is great. Like recruiters and hiring leaders definitely want to know that information, but it comes off as a little bit overwhelming, I think, if you just come in guns a-blazing and you're typing out like a huge message with your entire career story, and you're really kind of just laying that out there for the person on the other side to I guess deal with or provide some sort of feedback back to you. It's a little difficult, I think, to really know how to action those types of messages, because really as a recruiter, I know really at the core that everyone that's reaching out to me likely wants a job at some point in the future, whether it's immediately or at some point in the future, or like wants to learn more about networking or job searching or interviewing or something like that. So I think that's sort of already implied, I think, but in terms of someone reaching out to you. So you don't necessarily need to always be so direct and detailed and to the point about like every little minute thing that you're hoping to get out of that relationship, or every little minute thing about your background. It's more just about saying kind of, hey, how's it going? I really found this one aspect about your profile was really interesting, or about your organization was really interesting. Would love to connect with you and find out a little bit more about that. It's more about just being a little bit more casual and less direct, a little bit more reserved, and again, just asking, I think, for something simple and reasonable that is actionable for the other person to give to you. And again, I'm mostly talking about in the context of networking here, but the same thing can be applied in interviewing as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide, though, in a second. So really at the end of the day, I think it's just keeping in mind the different nuances and complexities of Canadian or North American society and the business world, just knowing that it's not necessarily always as direct or to the point. Definitely being direct and being data driven and being able to get to the point is important, of course, in any professional setting. But I think in Canada and North America in general, it's a little bit less direct than some other cultures, and a little bit more about kind of establishing that longer term trust and relationship over the course of time by having these kind of back and forth shorter conversations where you're really just learning about each other, both personally and professionally as well. So that's really kind of the perspective I would have to share on what the Canadian way is. I know that's not like any true answer or anything like that, because I really don't believe there is a true Canadian way. Like I think everyone would have their own story or their own I guess situation to tell. So but I think if you keep in mind some of those things just about how direct you're being and how aggressive you're being in your communication style, or versus being a little bit more reserved and kind of taking that longer term proactive relationship building approach, I think that's where you might find some variance in terms of the success, depending on the approach that you're taking. But I did want to open it up as well. Like would love to hear from anyone else what your experiences have been, or what you view to be the Canadian way, and yeah, let's start there, and then of course I've got a few other slides and kind of high level thematic questions to talk through as well. So yeah.
I was wondering like, so when you go for an interview, you want to be confident, you want to be assertive. So what is assertion and what is aggression? What, like, can you be a little specific? What kind of attitude will you see from someone that would be too overwhelming? And what's like, issue of confidence?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a great question. I'm just gonna hop to my next slide here, because I am addressing this like on this slide directly. So and by the way, I got the way I got these questions is because I actually had a conversation with someone named Matt Skolar. He's a Slovakian guy that lives in BC now, that I've been connected with through LinkedIn for a while, and he's an awesome guy, and we had a great conversation about this exact subject about a month or two ago. So these were some of the questions that he actually initially had for me. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about some of these things in a wider context as well. But anyways, to kind of, I guess, address this and then to jump directly back into your question, so what irritates recruiters and hiring leaders? So I think that aggression or what can be perceived or come off as aggression, or being too direct, that's one of the things I would say that can irritate recruiters and hiring leaders, especially in that interview setting. So to answer your question directly, here these are just a few examples that I've personally experienced with some different newcomers to Canada, I would say, interviewing at Avanti. So I've had, for example, and this has happened many times actually. So usually I'll start off the interview by just trying to kind of break the ice and sort of say hello, how was your day, and that kind of thing. And I think that certain times candidates will sort of ignore what I'm saying, or they'll ignore sort of that little icebreaker conversation, or they'll even ignore sometimes the first question that I ask them, and they'll immediately jump into pitching themselves and why they're the best person for the job and talking about their entire experience. This is something that I have seen more frequently, I would say, with newcomers to Canada than with other groups of candidates. I don't know why that is, but again, it might be a cultural thing of in other countries, or other cultures, maybe searching for a job is different at its core. Maybe it is more about coming out there and selling yourself a little bit more aggressively and talking about what it is that you bring to the table and that kind of thing. But again, it goes back to that it's a conversation, right? It's a back and forth. It's me asking questions and getting the answer to that question. It's the other person asking me questions and getting the answer to that question, so that we get to know one another. It comes off, quite frankly, as rude and lacking in self-awareness and not having good listening skills, if a person were to just completely ignore the question or ignore kind of the conversation that's happening and then just jump into their own sort of monologue pitching themselves. That really is never a good idea, I don't think, in any context in Canada. I would say it's again thinking about the back and forth conversation. So that's one particular one particular example, I would say. I think that's one of the biggest things is, and again, sometimes it might be a listening kind of comprehend or verbal comprehension thing as well, depending on how new the person is to Canada and in communicating in English. But it really does not reflect well when a candidate of any kind just completely dips a question and is not providing, I guess, an answer that's directly relevant to the question that was asked or directly relevant to the conversation at hand. So I think it's being a little bit more I guess aware of kind of where the conversation is going and how the conversation is flowing, and not treating it as transactionally, maybe as in some other cultures. And again, like I haven't necessarily lived or grown up or experienced in a different culture, so I'm just speaking out of kind of theory, I guess, here, and that's why I would love to involve others. Like I would love to hear from some of you in the audience as well, like tell me if I'm wrong or tell me if I'm right. Like, are there other cultures?
A big part of it, I think, is nerves, actually.
Yeah.
So when you're coming into an interview, you're like, this is serious business. and you want to
Pascal,
say all the right things, right?
Pascal, sorry, Winnie,
Sure,
that I
sure.
interrupt you.
Yeah.
Did you observe this on the online interview, or did you have the same observation when you have face-to-face interviewing people?
Yeah, so I have experienced it both, definitely. Of course, in the context of the tech industry, it's been online with Avanti the last year, but I have certainly experienced this in some other industries as well, with newcomers to Canada, I would say as well. And it's not, I'm not trying to generalize by any means. Again, I'm just trying to share my honest perspective and talk about kind of what I've experienced or observed. Seeming to be more common in terms of people that are newer to Canada or coming from a different language, like first language or cultural background or something like that. And again, it's just, I think, the potentially, like, depending how new the person is to Canada, they might not be comfortable yet in terms of listening, I guess, or picking up someone speaking as quickly in English, or again, just like you had said, sorry, not necessarily, geez, I'm blanking here, but you know kind of where I'm heading. I think just not necessarily being always as direct, or sorry, being a little bit too direct. Yeah, sorry, I'm really struggling for words here. But is there anything else you can add to that question, Isabel? I think. Was it, or were you just curious if I had experienced this in both
I don't know.
settings?
I mean, I don't have experience on the tech area because I am geologist, and I have the opportunity on having different interviews in the oil and gas, and I never have that problem. No, I mean, usually you have an ice break, and after that, people start asking questions about your experience. No, at least in the oil and gas. On the tech, I don't have an idea.
It's essentially the same idea here as well, like usually having some sort of little icebreaker, how was your day type conversation, and then moving into the questions about yourself as a candidate and learning about you, and then of course hopefully having a little bit of back and forth conversation so that we're able to answer any questions that the candidates have for us as well. I think that's just one example off the top of my head from an interview setting, but there are a few other things I wanted to get through here on this slide as well.
Tokyo has the hand raised. If you can unmute yourself, Tokyo.
Hi guys, yeah, I was just going to ask about with the icebreaker. I think the tendency, at least for me being in the UK, because that's quite normal. My last interview must have been about 4 years ago now, but you know, you get the odd question at the start. How long did you have to get in to the office, blah blah blah. But the risk, at least, is trying to make you may come across too informal for like a split second, and then you have to snap back into the interview mode. How does that, from your experience, Pascal? I mean, have you seen that where it's almost like you want to show your true self, yet not let your guard down altogether, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Thanks to Kira. I mean, I definitely, I think I've experienced that in the past. I mean, like, I personally have experienced that in the past, I'm sure at times in past interviews as well. But for Avanti and for a lot of tech organizations, I would say in Canada as well in particular, things are a little bit more casual. I would say a little bit more informal and more conversational and less strict and less professional and less I guess like structured, if you will. So I think that's okay for us at Avanti and for a lot of tech companies that I've dealt with, and I know people that work with, or that work at, sorry. So I really do think that is sort of more of the norm in the tech industry in Canada, is being a little bit more casual and conversational and informal. So I wouldn't be too worried about that, especially if the majority of you are looking to pivot into the tech industry. I would try to focus on being a little bit more casual and conversational and friendly than being more professional and strict and kind of buttoned up, if you will, if that makes sense, especially for the tech industry. And I realize that advice probably doesn't necessarily stand true across all industries in Canada, but I would say that in the tech industry that is pretty common and sort of the norm or expected.
And it also helps that you attend events like this. So the more you network and tell people about what you do, who you are, the easier it gets talking about yourself. So it's no longer very awkward. You are natural at being conversational the more you practice it. So it's also, like attending different events, meeting people helps a lot in getting you out of the formal interview zone.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. And there was one other thing I just wanted to address here on this slide as well, and this is more related to when you're applying for jobs. So, and this again, I don't know if this is necessarily a cultural or a language thing, because I've seen like candidates of all sorts do this, but I did just feel like it was something that I should call out because I have seen it frequently from all sorts of candidates. And what I'm going to say here is, don't ask for a referral for a job from someone that you don't know or that you just connected with like that day or the day before on LinkedIn or something like that. That happens to me quite frequently, to be honest. And as a recruiter, first of all, I'm not eligible to refer people to our organization because my entire job revolves around recruiting and interviewing and hiring. That would be nice if I could get a double payout or an additional bonus on top of my role, but alas, that's not the case, and that's really the case across all organizations. Usually the recruiter and the direct hiring leader for a position are usually never eligible to submit what's a referral to a role. So, and I think where that comes into play is a lot of international candidates, for example, might not truly understand what kind of a true referral is in the context in the Canadian recruitment and job searching world, I guess. So a referral in really the Canadian context, I guess, would be if, for example, I worked with someone for 2 or 3 years in the past, and I can really speak highly to their work ethic and to their character and to their dependability and communication skills and everything like that. And then I now work maybe, let's say 5 years later with a different organization, and then I decided that I wanted to refer them into that organization because I can speak highly. I know them extremely well. I've worked with them. I can speak very highly to their character. So that's what a referral, a true referral, if you will, is. So that's why, again, I really advocate for networking and taking that long-term relationship building proactive approach, because the only way you can get those kinds of referrals is if you start building relationships and networking today. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be with like peers in the workplace, but it also it could be with people at companies that you're looking to or interested to find out more about or get jobs at. It could be connecting with the other people on this call, for example, and networking with them, and or taking on a side project with Ross's organization, for example. Like all these kinds of things are great ways to build up that network so that longer term you can achieve that true referral. I think what I've seen some recent newcomers sort of perceive a referral to be is just like someone kind of putting in a good word for you or passing your name along to the hiring leader, sort of saying, oh, just a heads up, this person applied and they reached out to me, like might be someone's interesting to look into. So I think that's really just more of like a language or I guess understanding of what the context of referral is in sort of the Canadian or tech job search area. So I don't know, do you have anything else to add there?
That's something I've experienced before, actually. And what happened was, when you submit an application and they're like, how did you hear about us?
Mm-hmm.
So they list all the social media and then they say employee.
Yeah.
So if it was somebody you knew, or if you knew someone there and just submitted their name, it kind of automatically also means you are submitting them as referral, right? When it necessarily doesn't mean that. It could just mean that that's how you got to know that there's a role.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So I think it's
yeah.
just like that. Just it's a really small distinction, right? There's it's a really small area between the two, but it is that is a challenge I think that I've personally experienced and received lots of messages for, and it does get frustrating to have to tell people over and over again as a recruiter, especially that I'm not eligible to refer people into my own organization. So so I think it's just again like a slight sort of misunderstanding on the context of the word referral, for example, in that circumstance.
And it's okay to, like, if you're not sure, you can ask the person, right?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
If I submit your name, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's always the best route is if you're uncertain, just try to be a little bit more cautious and ask about it, because then you won't rub someone the wrong way, or you won't step on toes or anything, and you'll still get the answer that you're looking for at the end of the day. And who knows, you might even get a good connection or a coffee chat or a referral out of it, even if you just reach out to ask people if the organization does accept referrals, or what a referral means to their organization, or that kind of thing, before you're directly asking for a referral. Another key kind of thematic question I wanted to touch on was sort of this piece of how to balance confidence with humility. And Wunmi, I think you kind of touched on this with your first question in terms of the aggression piece. But another thing I kind of wanted to say here is trying to sort of balance how you're talking, I guess, in terms of about personal or individual accomplishments, I think, and sort of team or group or organizational accomplishments, and really, I think, again, in the context or setting of an interview, really, even in your answers, being able to communicate both why you are a good fit individually as a person, and as from your experience and skill set and everything like that perspective, but also why, like, also what you can learn and what you have to gain from this opportunity, and what you can improve on, and what you're looking forward to about the organization and the people that are working there and everything like that. So again, I would say that this is not necessarily or that last piece that I said is not necessarily exclusive to like international Canadian differences in style. Again, I've seen that across the board, but it's really about like just balancing these two things, I think, a little bit more effectively, and talking again about equally, or as equally as possible, about those individual pieces as well as sort of the collaborative or kind of group pieces. And I think this is something that I've learned just in speaking with a few different people from different cultures that I work with, that are originally from Central and South Asian backgrounds, and they have told me that a lot of people that are kind of raised in that part of the world, that grow up to kind of move on to Canada, they're often viewed as being I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of the word. They're often viewed as being sort of like the celebrated like child or family member in their family and in their culture back home, which is awesome. Like I'm all for that, but I think that sometimes causes issues when some of those people arrive in Canada and they are used to being treated like the star at everything they do, and they're used to being treated sort of like that celebrity figure in their family or in their culture, and then they come to Canada, for example, or come to, and not necessarily only Canada, they come to Canada or the US or any other why do I keep saying organization, any other country that they might immigrate to in the world, and sometimes I think just because of the I guess that mentality that they're coming from, being sort of that celebrated person and being one of the smartest people in their family or in their town or whatever it may be, that sometimes I think that can come off as a little bit overconfident or a little bit cocky or entitled to some Canadian folks, I think. So it's really just a matter of understanding that you've been through a lot and you've done a lot, obviously, but really, again, ingraining yourself a little bit more in that Canadian way of conversating, the back and forth, the building trust over time, getting to know each other little by little, asking questions, going back and forth. So it's again not really about trying to just kind of spew out everything that you can sell about yourself right off the bat. It should be more about that back and forth and open communication or open conversation, as opposed to again just trying to sell yourself so aggressively right off the bat. So that's just one specific example.
Would you say what comes off as being overconfident, does it come across in words, or is it in body language, facial expression, or a combination of all of that?
It's definitely a combination. So when it comes to body language, it's a little bit more difficult to assess, obviously, now with everyone virtually, but there are a few things that come to mind with overconfidence. So, or a couple, sorry, I should say. So number one is posture, actually. So posture, when people are very overconfident, they tend to like kind of lean way back in their chair, like almost as if they're gonna lay back for a nap or put their feet up or that kind of thing. They might, sometimes people, if they're overconfident as well, or if they're standoffish or aggressive in their behavior or the way they're communicating, they'll cross their arms. So that's a different way of assessing. But again, these kinds of things are much more difficult to see, of course, over Zoom. But I would say it's more about I think a little bit about how they're communicating it. Really, I keep using this example because it honestly is the most common one that continues coming up for me in the conversations and interviews that I'm having. I even had an interview late last week that this exact thing happened again with a candidate that had just recently moved to Canada, and it really has become a little bit more of a trend. I'm not trying to generalize. I'm not trying to say anyone on this call has done this previously. Maybe some have though, but it really, again, is oftentimes demonstrated by just not listening or not answering the question at hand, or just going off on a huge story, like trying to sell everything about themselves when that's not what they were asked about, or not what we were talking about in the conversation. So it's really more about, I think, like the conversational awareness piece and how they're engaging in the conversation, as opposed to any specific words they're saying or body language. It's more about, I think, the conversational awareness and how they're engaging in the conversation, how it's happening. And again, the best way to gauge that is just if they are listening, if they're actively directly answering the questions that have been asked. So those are some of the things I think that come up a little bit more frequently as far as the overconfidence side of things. It's really almost to, like I had said earlier, almost to sometimes unfortunately to a point where it's almost like a sense of entitlement, where the person on the other side, or it's perceived anyways from my perspective as a recruiter, that the person on the other side is not interested in the information that I have to give them, or is not interested in the questions that I am asking for them, and they're just there to exclusively pitch themselves, and because they think they're the best person for the job, and that's just how it is. So it's sort of that, like, I think just that piece of understanding that things work a little bit differently in Canada, and that it is a little bit more conversational and casual usually from an interview perspective, and it's not required to jump immediately into pitching yourself or selling yourself.
And Pascal, to be honest, small talk is actually hard when you're in an environment where you didn't grow up, because all that comes together in small talk. It's like a collective memory that everyone has of something that everybody agrees is the norm. That's where small talk comes from. So sometimes it's really hard to get conversations going. If you're new, you're still trying to understand how things work. Like the safest one will be talking about the weather, because you can hardly go wrong with that. But once it starts to get more complex, and like they're just talking about the Calgary Flames game, and you have never heard of hockey until you go to Canada. So like, you're like, okay, what do I say here? So some of that, it's a challenge. I mean, does anyone agree with me? Am I speaking for other people here? It could be hard.
Yeah, no, that's great perspective. That's exactly what I wanted to hear as well. And sorry, it looks like Andreas, you might have something to add there.
Yes, I think this topic is very interesting because I think when most of the people is working on their resumes, they tend to create a resume that is about achieving things, and then it's about me doing this instead of you know, and then the person itself becomes really important in the resume. But then when it's getting to the interview, then the part of that importance has to be left aside, right? Because you don't want to come across like you did all these things, because then you come like overconfident, and then it's kind of, you have to tone it down a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's a great thing to call out, and a great way of thinking about it as well, I think. And I really tell candidates or people that I give advice on their resumes that a resume is really, it should be like that. It should be like boasting and bragging about like all your best accomplishments and achievements, because a resume is really a personal branding document or a statement of kind of the personal value proposition that you can bring to an organization. So your resume should 100% be about your achievements and accomplishments and everything like that. But again, in the Canadian context, and when it comes to the interview conversations and working together and getting to know one another, it is a lot more casual and conversational, and more about that relationship building. It's more about learning about the other person and learning about the organization, I think, rather than it is about telling them everything about yourself, because they've already learned a lot of those things by looking at your resume and by reviewing your resume and by bringing you forward to an interview. So really the interview discussions are more about getting to know you as a person and as an individual, and the type of value that you can bring to the table, as opposed to all of those accomplishments and achievements that you've done. Obviously, it's good to have a few of those examples top of mind to answer interview questions with, but it's not about just regurgitating all of the information or achievements on your resume. It's about engaging in a conversation back and forth, and learning about one another, essentially, as you get through the interview process, because at the end of the day, we spend just as much time, if not more, with the people that we work with. So I think a lot of the interview processes in Canada are really designed to get to know the person, like from a personality perspective, from a characteristics perspective, from a values perspective, all these kinds of things, as opposed to those strict like accomplishments and achievements that you've done.
Yeah, we have a few raised hands. Theriault, do you want to unmute yourself?
Okay. Thank you, Omi. Okay, so I have to agree with you on the you know, when you're new to Canada and the icebreaker is about talking on the weather, which you're not really familiar with, or things that you're not used to. So for me, I've not had any interviews since I came to Canada, but I'm a bit apprehensive because of these kind of things, because I'm not sure. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look clueless. And at the same time, I don't want to sell myself short. So I'll now go back to what the presenter said about, you know, going on about yourself. Well, so what I would say is, for someone coming from outside Nigeria, from outside Canada, excuse me, what I would say would be responsible for that is, because people feel, oh, if I can't answer the question posed to me, let me say all I know, so that the recruiter can pick whatever she wants to pick from whatever I have to say. So people just tend to say all they know because they're not sure of what the recruiter is looking for. So how do we balance all this, not being used to the environment, being new, and at the same time, not sure what the recruiter is looking out for, especially when you're not clear about the question, or maybe you have asked for clarification once or twice and you don't want to sound stupid. So you tend to say all you know about what sounds like what the recruiter is saying. So I would like that kind of clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Theriault. That's a great question, and yeah, it's a tricky one, I think, but for myself personally, like, I would honestly much rather the person just ask a couple of clarifying questions or tell me that they're not understanding, so that I can try to pose the question in a different way, rather than them just completely talking about something else, because that's not value additive to the conversation. It's not value additive to the information that the recruiter or the hiring leader is seeking. So I think just being, and I know you're like, I understand that must be really challenging as a newcomer, and being apprehensive of the types of conversation that you'll be having and that kind of thing. But I think it's just really like being self-aware and just admitting and saying, hey, I apologize. I'm new to Canada as of a couple of months ago. I didn't quite understand what you meant with that question. Is there a way you can word it differently or provide a little bit more detail? I think asking those types of clarifying questions is totally normal and totally okay. And again, I would much rather appreciate that and see that than the candidate just talking about something that they think is related and may or may not be related. So and I would say honestly, like just be truthful as well. If the recruiter does answer the question or ask the question, sorry, in 2 or 3 different ways, or you're still not understanding it, I would just honestly say, just be truthful. Just say, I apologize, I'm really not getting what you're saying or understanding. Can we possibly move on to the next question, or would you be able to follow up with me over email afterwards, for example, so that I can get back to you after having some time to research like what you mean from like an English language perspective. I would much rather see that kind of thing or that sort of response than just, again, talking about something else or ignoring the question, because again, that kind of thing shows self-awareness. It shows that you are confident in yourself and willing to admit when you're wrong or when you don't understand something and ask a question to figure out what the right kind of way of doing things is, or what the sought after information might be. I think it also, especially if you ask them to follow up with you over email, it shows that you're engaged and serious about the discussion, and you're willing to put in the research and effort to kind of bridge that communication gap on that question, whatever it may be. So those are all like really positive attributes and really positive things that recruiters and hiring leaders would be looking for. Whereas if you just talk about something else or ignore the question, then it's like a big X or like a big negative on that question, because we're not getting any sense of any like positive attributes out of that, essentially. So hopefully that answers your question.
And in many cultures, vulnerability is not positive, is not perceived as something positive. And that's something I've found here in Canada, I think North America generally. When you're vulnerable, it actually makes you more relatable. So yeah. I think that fear of I don't want to appear stupid is actually perceived differently in most places here. Like if you admit that, oh, I'm not quite clear about that, I just got here 2 months ago, I barely know anywhere, people are happy to even like kind of make you more comfortable and explain things when you're vulnerable. So yeah, so it's great to know that it's not a weakness when you show. It's actually perceived as a strength when you're willing, when you're confident enough to show where you're weak.
Yeah, 100%. I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think especially in the tech and software industry as well. Again, I would say the tech and software industries are a lot more forward-thinking and innovative and inclusive, just in the way they think and run their organizations usually. So I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I want candidates to be their truthful, genuine, and vulnerable self with me, and in return, I will always offer that to them as well. Even hopefully tonight, like you can see that I'm trying to be as genuine as I can. And this is to be honest, like this was a difficult subject for me to talk about or present on, I think, as well, because like I know that I'm not the expert, and I know that I'm privileged, and I know that I haven't been through the same situations that so many of you have. So that's hopefully why I wanted to make it into a bit more of a discussion. It's great to hear these other perspectives that are being shared as well, because there's definitely a lot of work to do still out there for organizations and for candidates, I think, to bridge that gap as well. I see we're already at the hour here. Do we have a little bit more time, or should I start wrapping things up?
It's up to you, Pascal. Do you have some more time to spare?
Yeah, sure. I can spend a few more minutes. I'm just going to skip over the next slide, and then we'll come to this one. So because this actually ties in nicely to what we were just talking about. So how to turn being a newcomer into a strength in job interviews and in your job applications. So what we just talked about there with Winmi, of course, is really relevant to this. Just being your kind of genuine, authentic, and vulnerable self, or as vulnerable as you feel comfortable being in the interview. But like, by no means am I telling you to tell like your deepest, darkest personal secrets or anything like that. But what we were talking about is just admitting when you have something that you can work on or improve upon, admitting if you're not understanding something as much as you'd like in a communication, or asking a clarifying question. Those are some ways, of course, that you can show really positive attributes about yourself as well. But I think one of the best ways that you can turn being a newcomer into a strength in interviews is really just talking about the path, the adversity that you've all likely faced in immigrating to Canada, and in moving here, and in finding a place to live, and whether you've had to find a car, or maybe it's taking public transport around for a long time, and now job searching, and going through the networking and interviewing process. Like, that is the best answer, the best story, the best experience that you can have in your life. If you're ever asked the question, for example, tell me about a time where you faced or battled through adversity, which is a very common interview question, by the way. You literally all have the best experience and the best possible answer that anyone in the world could have for that question, because what is more difficult? What is the best example? Like, what's a better example story of facing adversity than literally moving across the world, coming to a new country, coming to learn a new language, adapting to a new culture and a new climate, and new friends and new working environment, and everything like that. Understanding the differences in communication gaps, like we're talking, or styles, like we're talking about tonight. So these are like thinking about all those things and how you can spin it in a positive, because it truly is a positive, and it truly is an amazing accomplishment and experience for all of you as well. So I think that's really like one of the best answers that you can have to that question. And even if it's for example, another common question might be, what are some of your greatest strengths, or what are some of the biggest kind of skill sets or value that you can bring to the table. And again, you can talk about your resilience in the face of adversity. You can talk about your adaptability in uncertain or changing situations. All these different things that I think, again, despite maybe not having the exact level of English communication, for example, that someone that's lived here for 20 years or that was born here might have, you have all these other things that you can offer that someone like myself can't offer, because I've never been through those experiences, and I've never been able to get through that kind of adversity or face or achieve those kinds of accomplishments in my life. So I think that's a huge positive that you can use to your advantage as well in interviews. So hopefully that is kind of a nice way to close off those questions. It looks like, oh, sorry. I just saw Winmi was posting another thing there. I thought that was a question. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add, Winmi or anyone else, on this question? Like, is there anything else that
raised hands, but I think they've already lowered their hands, so maybe the questions have been answered already. Okay,
cool. But yeah, anyways, I think there's lots of different ways, even on top of what I mentioned, that you can position yourself or position your experience and your journey, I guess, to Canada as a really strong strength. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought there leaving today. And then just the last thing is really the takeaways for today. So, oh, sorry, it looks like there might be. Oh, there's a question, or just a comment. Sorry about that. So anyways, just the takeaways for this evening. This has been obviously a really complex and just wide-spanning discussion, I think. And obviously, like I said at the beginning, I think everyone has their own perspective and everyone has their own lived experience as well. So what I really think the takeaway from this discussion is that there needs to be more discussion still about it, of course. So I think three different takeaways here. So Canadians that are responsible for hiring, so people like me, people that are in hiring leader positions or in HR positions, or that are the founders or CEOs of companies, for example, we need to be more aware and understanding of, as well as more open to the diverse communication styles and approaches that are simply a result of someone's cultural or geographic upbringing that has now immigrated to Canada. And I'd like to think that we at Avanti do a good job of this. I mean, inclusion is one of our core values, and we're always I guess just very proud of our diversity and the safe space that we create for people of all different backgrounds and cultures to come. But really, I think we and myself personally have still room to grow and learn more and improve in this area as well. And of course, lots of other organizations and people do as well. And on the other side, on your end, I guess, as recent newcomers or immigrants to Canada, it's also important, I think, for you to proactively seek to understand the differences or the gaps, just in, I guess, by participating in events like and conversations like this, between your current unique communication style from your home country or from your culture, and what is, again, more common in that potential city or part of Canada. And then from there, once you understand what those gaps might be, starting to try and work on some of the ways that you might be able to address them. So for example, if that's being uncomfortable with small talk, maybe trying to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, signing up for some sort of like online networking app. There's lots of different platforms out there nowadays that you can sign up for and just be connected or meet with people randomly and practice your communication skills in a more casual setting that's not necessarily tied to an interview or a job or anything like that. Even just trying to make small talk I know it's a little bit more difficult now with everyone wearing masks and not much stuff open, but even like, for example, going to the store or going to a restaurant in the future, like just trying to make small talk in those casual settings. I think all those kinds of things can really help you be a little bit more comfortable with that in an interview setting, for example, as well. So that's just one example, of course, but just really kind of trying to think about or how you can approach those gaps that might be in place. And again, on the flip side, us on the employer side, thinking about how we can be more open to understanding of and I guess approach or bridge those gaps as well. And then lastly, of course, is only by having this conversation openly and by understanding each other's perspectives, I think, can we really effectively address this gap over the course of time. And like I said, it really has to be, I think, a kind of a long-term and continuous conversation, because there are so many important perspectives that I think need to be heard here. And of course, so many people in Canada from so many different individual, unique cultural backgrounds and different geographies or countries in the world. So I think it's really an ongoing discussion, and I'm just really happy that I was able to be a part of it tonight. Hopefully some of the things that we've talked about have been interesting and valuable to you. I know I really appreciate hearing the stories and questions from a few of you this evening as well, because I think that's really important as well for myself and for us on the employer side to understand where all of you folks are coming from as well. So yeah, I'll leave it there. That's really the end of my presentation for this evening, but thank you very much for spending your evening with us. Thank you again, me and the Immigrant Techies team for having me and Avanti to present this evening as well. And I do apologize. I know I stumbled on my words there in the middle for about 30 seconds or so, and I'm not really proud of that, but it's been a long day, so apologies about that, and hope everyone was able to bear with me, and hopefully I represented myself a little bit more professionally throughout the rest of the
I guess you stumbled over some small talk there too.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, exactly. Everyone can use practice on the small talk. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Pascal. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, your insight, your relatability. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you as well. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm just going to drop as well my LinkedIn in the chat. I'm sure I'm connected with a few of you already, but I will just add that in the chat here quickly as well, just in case anyone would like to connect afterwards.
Okay.
There we go.
And in the chat, I put the link to our Slack channel, just for more engagement, more networking, just like what we talked about tonight. It is there to just connect with people and set up coffee chats. So please join the link.
There's also
the channel.
Oh,
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to say there's also a really cool platform that I just actually found out about called Lunch Club. It's one of these kind of like online kind of like randomized coffee chat type applications, I guess. So you get to enter all of your own personal kind of interests and I guess passions and the types of people that you're looking to connect with and that kind of thing, and the
Like
topics that you're interested in. Yeah, exactly. And then each week you can sign up whether you're available or not for a specific time slot, and then you get matched up with someone random, and they can be people from all across Canada, but there's people around the world, I think, on this application as well. But it might just be cool in terms of practicing communicating in English and networking and that kind of thing. So
Lunch
yeah, it's called
Club, you
Lunch
said?
Club. Yeah.
Lunch Club, that sounds great. And I also had a link in there. It's for Inception U. A lot of our members here went through the Evolve U program. So they're having an open house on May 27th, and that's the link there in the chat. So if you're interested in taking a software development course with Evolve U, I understand this particular event will be more experiential, like you'll get to test if you enjoy the program. So the link is in there if you are interested.
I've heard great things about that program as well. So if anyone's interested, you should definitely check it out. I've heard it's pretty comprehensive, like pretty lengthy and in depth, but it's I think it's one of the best kind of most highly regarded programs out there.
Okay, so with that, I will end the recording, and if anyone wants to still stay back and hang out in the room, you're welcome to do so. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks again. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.